Need this one for this video. Hi everyone, welcome to Shelf Control. I'm Norm, and today I'm doing an impromptu video. Tariffs. You like my makeshift F there? Doesn't have enough F's for everything, so I made one up. So yeah, I've got Andromeda's Edge out here on the table. We filmed a review of that and was going to put that up, but then all this talk about tariffs is coming up, and somebody actually commented on our video about tariffs, and so I thought I should do this video and make some people angry. So I got everyone's favorite here. I got a little whiteboard here of a to-do list. I'm sure I've got those done, so I'll just clean that up. So anyways, all this talk about the tariffs and what it's going to do to board gaming has been a recent discussion, and I think it's kind of interesting that the current administration put out the formula that they used for coming up with these tariffs, and that equation really reveals a lot about what this administration thinks tariffs are and how they should be applied, and it can also be used to see how it's going to affect prices of things in the future. There was a really great video. I'll try to link it in the description. A video by Matt Parker, a mathematician, who basically explained the whole equation, and I really like his videos. I was heavy into math in college. Calculus-based physics was my jam.
Nerd alert! Nerd alert!
So, I was like, all right, let me see this formula. A lot of this talk about the formula is going to come from his video. So please watch it. He's going to explain it much better than I'm not an educator, and so I'll just do the best I can to give you a brief description of the formula and give some real world examples of how that's going to affect board games, because it really got me thinking. I just recently did the Kickstarter for Northgard. You know what? Let me get that box. Now here we go. So if you saw the McKay's Thrift Find video, I think I mentioned that I found the retail version for cheap, and it looked like a good introduction to a 4X for people who don't want to spend 8 hours playing Twilight Imperium or something like that. And so I've gotten in one play of this, and it was fun. It was nice. It was light. I don't know really how well I'm going to enjoy it further on, but it seemed like a good introduction. But the retail doesn't have the warlords and the variety that the Kickstarter had, and they just came out with a Kickstarter where you could get the collector's base game, the 2 expansions that are out already, and the third one at a pretty decent price. And so I went ahead and got that Kickstarter, and then all this tariff stuff happened, and it got me thinking, is it still a good deal? What's going to happen? They said they were going to consider what was going on and come up with an update as to what's going to happen. Hopefully all this will just blow over by the time that production is complete and it starts shipping out, but we'll see. So I'm using Northgard as an example later on. I did some math, and so let's get into the equation to start. Let's see. My handwriting is terrible, but I'll try to put this out here. All right, that's pretty horrible. I cleaned it up a little bit. They had these flipped, which gives you a negative number, which would totally skew things, and they put asterisks in between these things. And so this is the cleaned up version where you have delta tau. I don't know why they used tau. Tau is like the ratio of a circle to its radius usually in a formula, but it is a T looking thing, so T for tariffs, I guess. So you have delta T tariff for a country, and it's going to equal M, which is your imports for that country, minus the exports to that country, divided by what is that? Is that phi? Well, I'm not sure why they used that either. That's the price that they think is going to be passed along to the consumer from the importer. It does look a little bit like a P, I guess, so that's why they use that. And epsilon is the elasticity of demand. So as prices go up, then it determines how much people are going to be dissuaded from buying it. So if it has, if people want that product, no matter how high the price gets, it's going to have a different value than someone who's like, no, that's too much, I'm not going to get it. And that's what the epsilon is for. And I guess it looks like an E for elasticity, so they went with that, and then multiplied by the imports of that country again. An amusing note is that they made phi 0.25, and they made the elasticity, gave it a rating of 4. So when you take 0.25 multiplied by 4, you get 1. So this formula here is basically just MI, because 1 times MI is MI. So they just added those in for no reason, except it does give you insight as to what they think, how much of the price is being passed on to Americans themselves. And it also lets you know how much they think demand is going to be affected, and that reveals their secret, that if they think that we're importing too much stuff and not exporting enough, the way they're going to fix it is not by making our stuff better and try and get our exports up, but it's going to their choice is to make Americans not want to buy other people's stuff. And so that's kind of interesting too. The example that the guy Matt Parker used was like a bottle of wine, and basically saying that if the price of the wine was $100, and then you put a 20% tariff on that, they expect 0.25 of that 20%, or the $20, because that's 20% of 100, to get passed on to the consumer for $105. And then if you use this formula, you actually would move this up to here to get the change in the tariff. And so it basically subtracts that 20% tariff from the 100% demand, so demand would go down to 80% is what they're thinking. What they're trying to do with delta T is get it so Americans will buy less stuff, so the trade deficit will get smaller, because we're not buying as much stuff, and that way it can be equal. So that doesn't even take into account that we're not importing the same stuff. So his example, New Zealand, they buy a lot of our aircraft and machinery and stuff, and we buy a lot of their meats and wines. And so I can understand a targeted wine tariff if people were buying so much New Zealand wine that they weren't buying California wine. And so you give a little bit of a tariff to the New Zealand wine to raise the price, to get demand down. It doesn't affect the demand for wine itself, so you buy the California wine. That makes sense. But comparing wine to aircraft and saying that they need to be equal in that, and I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me. There's a whole big paper that Matt Parker went to that has all kinds of graphs that show it's a lot more complicated than just this, which is actually just that as a formula to determine your tariffs, because this has nothing to do with the what's coming in and what's going out. It's just, is this number bigger than that number, then we need to change it so that number gets smaller. And so using the administration's own formula to figure stuff out, I looked up the numbers that they did for Northgard. And what I did was I just took the number of pledges at each level and came up with a total. The total that I have is a little bit lower than their total because people were adding in their estimated shipping values to try and reach stretch goals. And so I didn't want to include those extra bits in, and instead just go off the price of the expansion and the price of the bundle and do the math from there. So for Northgard, the Kickstarter, they had 3,306 people at the €49, which is the cost for the price for the expansion, and that comes out to $54.13 American. And so when you take all those into account, that's $178,953.78 is what they collected for the expansion. They had 755, one of them being me, at €160 for the base game collector's edition with both existing expansions and the new one coming out, and that comes out to $176.75 American, which times 755 is 133,446.25 is what they brought in with the bundles, and that total comes out to $312,400.03 is what they brought in. And so that's everything that they brought in. So let's take a look at their tariffs. And this is Wednesday, and today is when Trump said that their 104% Chinese tariff was going to kick in. And that is just absolutely crazy, because if you plug that into their formula, that puts demand down to -4% according to their formula. So they're pricing stuff so high that they believe no one will want to buy anything from China. Let's say we have the tariff percent here, the price here, and we'll put in demand there. So before before the 104, let's just call that at the 0% tariff. There was, before Trump got his hands on it, I think there was a 10% tariff on stuff. But so this was for just the expansion was $54.13, like we said, and we'll put the demand at 100%. So 100%, 3,306 people wanted it at $54.13. You bump that tariff up to 104%, and all of a sudden you're adding $14.07 for $68.20. And according to their equation, demand's going to go down to -4. They're saying that nobody, less than nobody, would want to buy the expansion for $68.20. And that's if they're right that the importer is going to absorb 75% of the tariff and just pass on 25%. That's an awful lot of money for an importer to just absorb. But we'll go with their numbers because it's their equation. So it's going to go up by $14.07 for the expansion with their tariffs. For the regular, for the bundle, what did we say its price was? $176.75 at 100% demand, because 755 people were willing to pay $176.75 for the bundle, myself included. And we add 104% tariff, passing on just 25% of that to the consumer, because the publishers can afford that, apparently. The price goes up by $45.46 to $222.71. Again, a -4 demand, because nobody wants to pay $222.71, an extra basically $46 from the tariff. And that's only a quarter of the total tariff. So $45 times 4 is the whole thing. So 3 times 45, 120, 135. I don't know. I said I was good at math. It was physics. But that's like $130 that they're expecting that the importer is just going to absorb themselves and only pass 45 on to you. And that's a crazy expense that they did not plan on when they were doing the Kickstarter, when they were pricing things. They had no idea that the tariffs were gonna just go insane. So if the expansion, if the tariffs are increasing the cost by $14.07, and the 3,306 people have bought it at that price, that is an extra $46,515.42 on top of what they expected their costs were going to be. And remember, this is just the 25% that they're passing on to us, the American consumer, not the 75% that the administration thinks they're going to just absorb themselves. The bundle increased by 46, and there were 755 people. That comes out to 34,322.30, which totaled all together is $837.72. And so if Northgard wasn't a Kickstarter, this is how much more they would have to charge Americans. The 4,000 people who bought it, 4,000 people would have to pay $80,837 more for their product, and that's if the publisher absorbs 75% of the cost of the tariffs. And so the problem with this is that they've already run the Kickstarter. They haven't closed the pledge manager, so they have expected shipping for the base, the expansion. The expected shipping converted to American dollars to America using the high end of their estimation is $27.62 for the expansion. For the bundle, it comes out to $44.19 shipping. For the bundle, basically what this tariff has done is added a surprise cost of an extra $14.07 to the expansion and an extra $45.46 to the bundle. Now, in order to keep their numbers, I wouldn't even say nice, because this is still them absorbing 75% of the cost. $14.07, $45.46 is only 25% of what they're being charged extra. And if the administration says that they're going to pass 25 on to us and they can still be fine, the net shipping is going up to, oh my goodness, 89.60 something, $90 for shipping if Studio H, if the publisher here wants to do what the administration wants them to do. So the cost, all of a sudden, your $200 game, including shipping, is getting closer to $300 for the whole thing. And what are they going to do? Are they going to pass this on to the people? I don't want to pay $90 in shipping. I don't want to pay $100 in shipping. I didn't want to pay $300 for this game. $200, I was like, okay, I'll do that. Are they going to pass it on? Are they going to allow people to cancel? And then what's that going to do if demand goes to -4, like the administration thinks it's going to be? Then everyone cancels. And what's the studio going to do? They put in all this work. They've paid the graphics. Northgard is based off a video game. They paid for the license. They paid for artists. They paid for editors of the rulebook. They have staff. They have all these people that they've already paid for. And now, if 100% of the people don't want it, what's going to happen to them? And what about these Kickstarters that have collected everything? Like these people haven't collected the shipping yet, so they have the capability of increasing the price to help recoup the costs. But what about the Kickstarters that are on the boat sailing over here right now? Those, depending on what time they got on the ships and went out, they're going to be struck with this tariff. And they've already been paid for the product, and they've been paid for the shipping. And then when the stuff hits the shore, they're going to be hit with this bill that they were not expecting to pay, to hundreds of thousands of dollars more. And I got to tell you, the board game market, you're not getting rich as a board game publisher. You're hoping that you can stay afloat and pay your people and make a living wage. You start throwing in surprise $100,000 bills, and all of a sudden you're going under. And you pass those prices on to your consumer, especially after they've already paid what they thought was the full amount, then you got this ill will. You have people complaining, and uh, what what do you do? How do you deal with that? The people who talk about tariffs being great for our country, and I mean, that'd be one thing if we made board games here, but I mean, we don't. We make Monopoly here. I think that there's a factory that makes Monopoly, but I mean, is Monopoly that makes the quality of game that's Monopoly and sells for what does Monopoly sell for? $15? I don't know, but you know, is that company going to be putting out the quality of stuff here from Andromeda's Edge? This Andromeda's Edge was $189 for the all-in with $28 shipping, so it was just over $200 for this game at this level of production. I mean, look at these. Look at them! Look at these figures, the detail. It's so good, and we're expecting Hasbro factories to put out this kind of quality, and at the price that they are, it's just not going to happen. And if you're trying to price things so high so that manufacturing of these games comes to America, you've got to build the factories, you've got to get the equipment, which comes from China as well with the tariffs. So how much money are you spending to put this factory together? Are you wanting to build factories to build the machines to then go into the factories to build the games? How long are we talking to get this going? And then you have to have it employed by people who want a decent living wage in the cost of living of the country that we're in, America. It's just not feasible, especially without planning. You should be doing incentive like the CHIPS Act to bring chip production back to the U.S. Do things like that before you start pricing other countries' chips too high, because we don't have another option. I'm sure they expect us just to buy the Monopolies and the Clues and just be like, it's a board game, buy that.
Well, enjoy your dumb game.
You know, what are you crying about? Get Connect 4. We got Yahtzee. You know, buy that. We make that in America. They just don't know this hobby. They don't know what these publishers are doing to get these games to us, and the money that they're making. And we're supposed to absorb this cost, this tax on ourselves, because it's not a Chinese company that's bringing Northgard in. It's not a Chinese company that's bringing Andromeda's Edge in. These are Americans that wanted to put their dream out there, and they're having to pay this extra cost to bring it into the country, and it's not China that's paying it. I don't know why people can't get that through their heads. You know, the Chinese factory is charging what they charge to make the game, and then it's the American who is arranging to have it shipped over here that has to pay the tariffs. And then somebody's got to recoup that to the person who's importing it, and that's us. I don't want to pay $100 more to ship my copy of Northgard in. As much as I want to try the game, if that's what it comes down to, I'm going to try and cancel my pledge, and I'm not interested in any Kickstarters until we figure out what's going on with these tariffs and how we can fix this, because it's not good for America. It's not good for American production. It's not good for American consumers. I mean, the board game market is a small market, but this is happening across the board with everything. These aren't targeted tariffs. These are just nuclear bomb tariffs just just being thrown at people and just hoping that some good comes out of it. And they can't even, I put the thing down, they can't even get their equation right when they came up with it. So anyways, I probably talked long enough, angered enough people, so love to hear from you in the comments. I'll talk to you later. Bye.